Welcome everybody. I don't even know if I need a mic, but I'm going to use it just for the sake of going through those motions. We got a pretty good looking group here. Thank you all for making it through this first snowy night that we've had this year. So we appreciate you being here, and just be careful when you go home. As you may or may not have heard, I hope you have heard because we've been talking about it a lot. Boone County Public Library is celebrating 50 years this year. And tonight we are lucky enough to have talked our director, Carrie Herrmann, into coming up and giving us a full overview of the history of how this library came to be this wonderful library system that we enjoy now. I feel a little bit like I'm preaching to the choir because I see three very important people in terms of our library history here in Pat Annarella, 42-year veteran, Jenny Cole, who was instrumental in starting our library, and Jane Smith, our first librarian. So thank you all for coming, and I wanted to just pay attention to the three of you, very important people. So just a little bit of Carrie. She's worked in libraries for 30 years and 25, is that right? Spent right here at Boone County Public Library, or right in the Boone County Public Libraries. She has been the director of our library for 10 years. And luckily we have her here to talk about the 50 years, I guess 20 of which you missed, but the rest you've been here for. So please join me in welcoming Carrie, and we'll talk a little bit afterwards.
Shorter than you, Hillary. All right, when I walked in and I saw Pat, because these are three women, I know Hillary recognized them, but I really want to recognize them for starting and bringing the library really up to where we are today. They gave us the strongest foundation we could have had to move forward. I titled this presentation, A Journey Through Time. And Hillary did a great job of who I am. I've been knocking around libraries for a while. I worked for Campbell County, Kenton County, Boone County, and I did a short stint at the Indiana University Library. I am not an academic librarian. I could not get back to public libraries fast enough. So Boone County Public Library has been a cornerstone of the community for 50 years. I'm going to use this presentation to talk about its history, its growth, and its impact on Boone County. And I want to talk about our commitment to literacy, learning, and access to information. Before we get to BCPL, thought it might be worth noting that before BCPL, there were 5 efforts to start public libraries in Boone County. So in 1886, we had a book dealer named F.W. Bishop, who was advocating for a library in Verona. So he offered to provide books from all the leading authors of the day for a fee, and the proposed library didn't come to fruition, and the book salesman moved on. So there just wasn't enough interest in paying for a public library. So, I got my dates out of order. 1875, the Point Pleasant Grange, which was a local farmers association, was promoting public lectures, entertainment series at their meeting hall to raise funds for a public library. So, and another Grange Hall in Union at about the same time had a circulating library collection. They did some in churches, they did some around the county, but again, it just didn't take off, it ended, so we moved on, and in 1908, we tried again. So there was actually a pretty well organized group called the Boone Library Association. It formed in Burlington, and it was a literary society. So this literary society tried to raise funds for a public library. They hosted plays and lectures and performances. And again, by 1922, it was done. They just couldn't keep it going. So in 1947, there was a group in Walton called the Wana Club. They were a social organization in Walton and Verona who thought that they needed a library. So they started gathering books and donations, and they got a little spot where they could have it. But then the city, or the Walton schools where it was being hosted, they needed the space. So in 1959, the space for the library was removed and it became part of the school system. In 1949, Chapin Memorial Library was formed in Petersburg. It has it's a private endowment by Edward Chapin, who made the library possible. That library is actually still going today, and in fact, Boone County Public Library took over management in 2006 of that particular library. So there were a lot of tries to get a library. So, early beginnings. Jenny told me a story recently when we were filming a series of videos around the 50th anniversary about a woman moving into the community and saying, "Where's the public library?" And Jenny having to tell her that we don't have a library, you have to drive down to Covington for one. And that was kind of the birth of the idea that why don't we have a library? We need a library in Boone County. And ABLE was born. ABLE stands for the Association for Boone Library Encouragement. It was a group of citizens. It was grassroots effort to get a library into Boone County. And what they had to do was they had to collect enough signatures. Put this picture up. These are some of the early members of ABLE. They were gathering enough signatures to get the question of getting the Boone County Public Library on the ballot. They were able to do that. They get it on the ballot, so now they got to run the election. They got to run the campaign to get the people to vote for the library. And let me tell you, this was not easy. Here are some of the signs. For his sake, vote yes Tuesday, November 6th on a Boone County library. For their sake, vote yes Tuesday, November 6th on a Boone County Public Library. And this was a yard sign that they had. It just says, vote yes on Boone County Public Library. We were up against a new jail. And it came down between a library and a new jail. And the library won. Yay! November 6th, 1973. Boone County voted, we have a library. Okay, now what do we do with this? So, make sure I have my notes going. Board meets for the very first time. Ted Bushelman, some of you may recognize that name, is the board chair. So they're going through, they're setting up, they're getting everything set up. They need a librarian. They need somebody who's going to be a director for this system. Well, here comes Jane Smith, sitting in the back there.
She hasn't changed with it.
No. Jane was a brand new graduate from the UK School of Library Science. They took a chance on hiring someone who had not been a director of a library system before, and her job was to catalog all the books so that we could figure out, what it was. Jane in the card catalog had to figure out how to type up all those cards, how to, box them up and sort them and do everything, so that Jane was hired in March. If I have my dates right. She was hired in March of, March 1974. And on October 14, 1974, the first Boone County Public Library opened its doors in an old feed store on Girard Street. In fact, the exact address was 2 Girard Street, Florence, Kentucky. This is Jane giving out the first library card for Boone County Public Library. And on that first day, 180 people walked in the door. They were ready for a Boone County Public Library. So some significant milestones. And one of the things I should tell you is one of the first things Jane did was she hired Margaret. Margaret was an employee who worked with her, helping her to figure out all of this. Margaret was also our bookmobile driver. This is the first bookmobile that we had in Boone County. One of the stories that Jane has told me is there was absolutely no place to park our bookmobile up on Girard Street. So Margaret had to take the bookmobile home with her. So, by the way, just as a little bit of an aside, we still have a bookmobile. We refer to it now as a library bus. And Kentucky has the largest bookmobile fleet in the nation. So we still rely heavily on our bookmobiles. Here, I'm going to need my glasses. So just some significant milestones. Jane decided to step down in 1985, so she was director from 74 to 1985. And the second library director ever was hired, that is Lucinda Brown. We all called her Cindy. And yes, I did work with Cindy. She actually hired me at Boone County Public Library. And in 1993, this bookmobile was retired. Margaret got to come in from the cold and work inside the building. But we retired the bookmobile at that point. In 2004, so we had about an 11-year hiatus where we did not have a bookmobile. And in September of 2004, the Community Center on Wheels was purchased with a grant from the Department of Health and Human Services. This was an interesting vehicle. It was a partnership between the library, the Extension District, schools, the Health District, a lot of different entities. And what would happen is the library would go into a community to do a story time or a literacy program of some sort. And the Health District might be there to do an eye screening or to teach children how to brush their teeth. So we ran this vehicle for a number of years as part of a partnership. I can say that on June 30th of 2008, our annual circulation actually exceeded 1.2 million items circulated. Jane told me the story that, and this, I'm going backwards a little bit. First year she did her annual report. Every library, every year, has to do an annual report. And she found out that after that year, we were 3rd in the state already for circulation. So Boone County really needed and wanted that library, and they were showing it with usage. So just to show you from 1974, when we opened our doors, that first 180 people walked in, to having 1.2 million items in circulation. Well, in 2009, Cindy decided to retire. Boone County Public Library hired their 3rd director, Greta Southard, who I worked with too. So I've had the privilege of working with all 3 of the previous library directors. That's been really nice, and it's given me a good solid foundation. On June 30th of 2014, go back. In 2013, we decided to add ebooks to our collection. How many of you use ebooks or read ebooks through our app, Living? I'm very surprised that I'm almost exclusively an ebook reader now. I didn't think I'd ever be able to say it, but it's just so easy. We started the statewide consortium for ebooks, and I will say I did that, and it was an accident. I didn't mean to start a statewide consortium. I was negotiating with the vendor, and I asked a simple question of, hey, what would the cost be if there were more than one library part of it? And at that point, I was thinking about, hey, let's partner with Kenton and Campbell County and get a Northern Kentucky group going. Well, we would have conversations around the state about different things, and this library would come to me and say, hey, I'd like to be part of that, and this library would come. So we started our statewide consortium in 2013. Instead of with just 3 libraries, we started with 15 libraries. So I accidentally started a consortium. But within that first, by June 30th of 2014, our circulation of digital items had exceeded 134,000 items. We're still going, just to let you know. We hit 2 million this last year. So they're very, very popular. That consortium also now reaches 115 counties of the 120 counties in Kentucky. So we have continued to grow that. On October 26, 2014, so I just hit 10 years, I became the 4th library director for Boone County Public Library. And in June 30th of 2015, we had annual program attendance exceeding 115,000 people. And the programs just keep getting bigger and bigger. I left this on the screen because September of 2018, the cow was 14 years old, and we retired it. It was starting to spend more time in the shop than it was out on the road. And we replaced it with the library bus, which is our bookmobile now. And you notice there are 3 vehicles in there because in very, very quick succession, we purchased the library bus in September of 2018. That's the one in the back. The one in the middle, which is our outreach vehicle, we purchased in October of that same year. And in May of 2023, we purchased another vehicle to be what we call a mobile Boone Innovation Lab. So what a mobile Boone Innovation Lab, if you have visited Hebron or you have visited here or the New Walton location, these are technology rooms. They may have 3D printers, they may have laser engraving machines, they have sewing machines, quilting machines. It's a lot of different equipment. This is one that we can take out into the community that has a lot of that same equipment on it and do programs in the community. What we're doing is we're trying to reach people who maybe they can't make it to the library, maybe they think they don't have enough money to try some of these things, so we're trying to reach that particular community. We weren't just doing stuff, we were expanding physically too. One of the first things, besides opening the new building that Jane and Jenny, I know, was part of this, was purchasing land, planning the design, getting it built, and opening the first permanent location in Boone County. So on June 20th, 1976, the Florence branch opened. It was renovated and expanded in December of 2001, and then it had another renovation in September of 2016. So this building is now a little over, it's close to 13,000 square feet now. In April of 1989, we opened the Lentz branch that was on Kentucky 237. That location, I can't see around me. That location closed on September 1st of 2015. We were getting ready to build a new location for Hebron because that location was landlocked and we really couldn't add on to it. and by that point it needed quite a bit of work. In June of 1994, we opened the Walton branch. I hear stories about the opening of the Walton branch, that the people were so excited to have a library, they took basically every book we had on the shelf on opening day. So we had to bring books in from other locations to help with that. So the Walton branch closed on May 31st of 2024 because, again, same issue that we had with the Lentz location. It was landlocked and it was too small to serve the community, the southern portion of Boone County. So we closed it in advance of opening a new location. I actually came with this building. This is the Shaven Branch in Union, and that's how I kind of introduced myself. This particular building opened March 4th of 2000. I started working for Boone County Public Library February 1st of 2000. So I was part of getting books onto the shelf. I was part of the hiring for this particular building, setting up some of our policies. This is where Jane and I really met. We found ourselves eating lunch together all the time, whether we wound up in the lunchroom at the library or across the street somewhere at a restaurant. Somehow we were always eating lunch at the same time. And we became very good friends because of that. So the Shaven Branch, when it opened, we moved the administrative headquarters from the Florence Branch to the Shaven Branch. And that's why we did that renovation in 2001, is we could capture that administrative area now for public area at the Florence Branch. And then while we were there, we added on to it. The Shaven Branch is our second largest location at 35,000 square feet. Chapin Memorial Library, I mentioned this. This is a mixed-use building, opened in 2006. October of 2006. In that building, you have the library, you have the fire district, and you have a community center. And we use the community center for our programming that we do down in there. When you look, or when I describe our branches, I have a main library. I have 4 branches that are full service locations, so 50 plus hours, fully staffed, all sorts of services. Chapin Memorial Library is what I refer to as an express location. It is accessible 47 hours per week with your library card. You scan at the door and your library card lets you in the building. Once you get in the building, we have computers that you can use, we have a printer that you can use, we have a locker system that you can request books, and just like Amazon will deliver the books to the locker, you scan your library card, your locker door pops open, and you have your books. And then we have, I refer to it as the largest little free library that you'll ever see in there. We have an honor collection. So if you're waiting for the books that you put on hold to come in, there are books there that you can take, you can read, you can bring back, you can bring something different back. And then, as I said, we offer programming in there. 16 of those 47 hours we do have staffed. So there are people there who can help with computers, help teach you the lockers, and register you for a library card. January 5th, 2008, the main library that opened. This was a huge endeavor. This is when our staff really grew. We hired 50 people in order to open this building. And it had to be a mixture. We didn't want all new people at this building. We wanted a mixture, so we would move people from around the system. Pat and I actually made the director at the time, Cindy Brown, kind of mad at us because, again, we picked up and we moved the administrative offices from the Shaven Branch to the main library now. And Pat and I refused to leave Shaven because we didn't think that the staff we had there had been trained enough. So we stayed to make sure everyone was trained. And that was one of the things when Pat and I really got to know each other, is we were part of that huge hiring in of people, and we were working together to get everybody trained and everybody ready to go. Once we moved into this building, just like with the Florence Branch, we did a renovation at the Shaven Branch so that we could recapture that administrative space for public usage now. So remember, we closed the Lentz branch on September 1st of 2015. We opened the new Hebron branch on July 29th, 2019. Why such a long thing? We didn't expect to have that long of a wait between everything. We had the 2 wettest years on record. I started joking with the people in Hebron that we had changed our minds. We were no longer building a library, we were building a swimming pool. I had a great big hole in the ground that just kept filling up with water. The joke with the architect was, if you needed rain, just ask Carrie to plan something for the new building. It was horrible. So we finally got it open July 29th, like I said, of 2019. That was our first Boone Innovation Lab, our first maker space there with all the technology equipment. It has a 1-mile walking trail that is a story walk that marries getting kids up and moving, so exercise, with literacy, because there is a book along the trail that you stop, you read a page of the book, they give you something to do as you walk to the next page. So those were 2 new spaces that we had at that particular location, and we have an amphitheater there. Our first look at trying to do some outdoor spaces that we could do some programming in, and boy, we didn't realize how much we were going to need that, because notice how July 29th, March 13th, 2020, the world closed down because of the pandemic. It took me 3 months to get the library reopened. I kept working with the state, and they kept telling me, libraries are complicated. We can't figure out how to open you up. I'm like, I know libraries are complicated. We can tell you how to do this. They finally listened to us. We were able to open. But one of the things we learned with the pandemic is how much programming we could do, how many services we could offer outside the library. Using that amphitheater, we could do story times in the amphitheater and social distance all the people. We could do the concerts and do the same thing. We could do things on the walking trail. So we really learned that. And we've been slowly moving it out into all the other locations. The other thing we learned was curbside service. It was something that, okay, February of 2020, I went to a conference, I come back, I'm talking to the branch manager here, I'm like, I went to this program, they were talking about curbside, I think we can do it, let's test it here. She's like, great. So we're slowly, as I said, we were only like 2 or 3 weeks out from where I went to this conference, and the world shuts down. Well, the first thing we were able to bring back was, let's do curbside service so we can get the books in the hands of the people. So we had to really fast track that idea that we were going to try here to hit all of our locations. And that's something from the pandemic, like the outside spaces, that we are keeping. And then, September 29th of this year, we opened the new Walton branch. We went from a 6,000 square foot location to a 25,000 square foot location. Again, it has a back patio area that we can use as a stage, and a natural hill that we can use for seating, like an amphitheater like we have at the Hebron location. It also has a Boone Innovation Lab. This one is dedicated to what I call fiber arts or textile arts. It has 2 different sized quilting machines. It has embroidery machines, sewing machines, sergers, and boy, are we getting a lot of use already at that particular building. We also provided study room use. The first day we opened, there was a gentleman at the front of the pack who says, I need a study room now. We're like, okay. So we got him into the study room. In the first 20 minutes of that building being open, we had over 400 people come in. In the 4 hours we were open that day, we were just short of 1,000. It was 968 people came to that building that day. Again, showing us it was needed. We have meeting rooms there, so some things that they were missing in the community. And we're seeing people in our story times who said they had stopped going to story time at Walton because it was just too small. They really couldn't do anything. So our programming is going really well. That one's supposed to fly in later in the presentation, but we'll figure it out. So technological advances. April, with the glasses again, April 15th, 1994, library operations go online. What that means is we signed a contract and we started having our card catalog online, checking things out online. September 15th, 1996, the library offered public internet at all branches. My kids are very shocked when I start telling them I was here before the internet. I remember the first time I got online. And online access, Boone County Public Library was the first library in Kentucky to have a website. Okay, I'll tell a little bit of a story. That's the one that's down in the corner here is our current website. We got the domain bcpl.org for Boone County Public Library. We were online before Baltimore, Maryland, so Baltimore County Public Library. They have asked us, and at one point they tried to bully us into giving them the bcpl.org website address. So our answer to that was we bought the domain for 99 years. So they can't have it. That conference, I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago. The director of the Baltimore County Public Library was there. We've gotten to be pretty good friends. She sat down next to me and said, I'm going to sit with the other BCPL because we know what we're doing. So we were the first to have a website. We offer online resources, databases, so that you don't have to pay for these very expensive databases to do research. You need your library card, we've got the sources for you. Ebook lending, I talked about how we started the statewide consortium that we still run. It's available as a website or as an app. The app is where I do most of my reading on my phone, by the way. We offered self-check. I can actually tell that story. I've been trying to talk Cindy Brown into doing self-check machines for about a year and a half. Could not talk her into it. She was not going to do it. And I had gone to run to, we were still at Shaven at the time. I ran across to Kroger to pick up something on my lunch break, came back, walked into her office, and I said, put your coat on, we're going to Kroger. She says, what? I said, we're going to Kroger. I stood her in Kroger for an hour to watch the number of people using the self-check machines at Kroger. We walked back to the library and she says, okay, go get your quotes. So we now offer self-check at all of our full-service locations. Chapin is too small. They're automatically checked out in Walker anyway. So we have a mobile app. If you don't have our mobile app, it is wonderful. Barnes & Noble probably hates me. I'll be standing in the bookstore and I've got my mobile app going, yep, library has this. I'm just going to put it on hold. It'll be there when I get to work. Our mobile app is pretty good. You can look up books, you can put things on hold, you can reserve a meeting room, you can do just about everything that you can do on our website on the mobile app. And then this is a picture of the Hebron Food Innovation Lab. That's showing some of the 3D printers, and we've moved the sewing machines from this one down to Walton. We're trying to give an emphasis to each one that's a little different so that we can have a broad range of machines across all of the buildings. So, community involvement. We take volunteers. We have a volunteer application on our website. I will tell you, since this is the Boone County Historical Society, I refer to our Archive and History Center as the black hole of volunteers. Volunteers go in, they never come out. But I always see them in the building. They never move to different departments. So they really like and they enjoy working in the local history department. But we use volunteers in our collection services department. We use volunteers in our By the Book, which is the book sale area that we have. We use volunteers all throughout the library, helping us set up for large programs. So check out that volunteer application. Annual reading challenges. We do our summer reading, which is probably what everyone is familiar with. We just finished, that runs June and July. We take a little bit of a break. We ran one in October around our 50th anniversary. So, and if you didn't see the prizes for that, I loved them. There's retro. 50th anniversary BCPL Bobby socks. There were hats, there were pennants that you could have. The pennants were pretty cool. And then look for in January, we'll be running our winter reading challenge. Again, give you prizes for reading. It's cold, it's dark. Just, you're already reading, so get some prizes. Programs. We offer programs at all of our locations from infant to, the way this has been rephrased to me is we offer programs from womb to tomb. So whatever your age, we have something that you will probably enjoy at the library. And then partnerships. We have a lot of partnerships. The Boone County Historical Society is one of those partnerships. Boone County Schools is another one. We do a lot of work with the fiscal court, the extension district, so we are always doing partnerships. I talked a little bit already about the impact of COVID-19 on BCPL. That fiscal year 2020, we were actually on pace to set a record for circulation, for visits, for program attendance, and of course when we had to shut down in March, we didn't hit that. But fiscal year 21, really, really low. We were still trying to get people back in. We are back now. We are right at that again. We're on pace to break records. We're on pace to bring in more people for programming. So we're very happy about that. And then future goals. We have a strategic plan that emphasizes services, spaces, and staff. And in those areas, we are truly looking at early childhood literacy. We are looking at the Archive and History Center, doing a lot of work. And then we're doing what we call cultural and life experiences. Thanks to the pandemic, I'm going to talk about teens. We have a lot of teens who are missing some skills that they would have gotten when school was shut down or when they weren't being socialized with other kids. So we're doing a lot of programs to build that up. We're also bringing in more concerts, more plays, all of those things. For spaces, so along all of those, we're doing, we just finished building the Walton Branch. We're still working on the punch list. There are still those little things. Our next big project that we are going to look at is the Florence Branch. We're looking at another expansion and basically gut the inside of that building down to the studs and go up again. Modernizing the outside, modernizing the inside a little bit. So we're very excited about that next project that you'll be seeing. You're not going to see a lot of moving dirt or anything like that until fiscal year 2026, but we're already planning. There are already discussions happening about what we're going to do with that building. And we have a foundation now. Boone County is very generous. I will tell you that our tax rate is 4.1 per every $100 of assessed value. That's 4.1 cents for every $100 of assessed value. And we do a lot of work with what we get through tax revenue. The foundation is here to help us with other things that maybe our tax revenue, we can't bring in enough to do. One of the things, and this is kind of an odd one, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. They will only work with another 501c3. The library is not a 501c3. We are a governmental agency. So we needed a nonprofit, which is what our BCPL Foundation is, to be able to get Boone County Public Library, or the Boone County Dolly Parton's Imagination Library up and running, and I'm really proud of that. We had a goal of the first year of hitting about 20% of children. We blew that out of the water and hit 42%. From last year to this year, we've seen an increase in 32% of that. So we're really working hard. The other thing, the foundation, and this hurt, I had to turn down a 6-figure donation because they wanted to do an endowment that would fund a particular program year after year after year. And as a governmental entity, I can't do that. A foundation can do that. However, by the time we got everything through the state and got it all set up, that money had gone to someone else. So that hurt. That really hurt. So our foundation is prioritizing early childhood. They are prioritizing the archive and the history center. Are there 2 big emphasis right now? They have 4 that they are looking at, but that is specifically. The archive and history center, as we are setting it up, takes a lot more money than what the library can actually afford to put into it. So the archive and history center is helping to raise funds for that. You can donate check. We have a PayPal account that you can donate. We are on the Kroger Community Reward, so if you have your Plus card, you can connect it to us, and then we are actually with the Horizon Fund of Northern Kentucky, so you can donate through them and designate the funds for the library, just to let you know. And before I go to questions, I want to leave you with a quote from Albert Einstein. The only thing that you absolutely have to know is the location of the library, and I firmly believe that. Questions? And Pat, Jane, and Jenny, if I missed anything, throw it out there.
Can you talk about some of the things that came aside from curbside service and the outdoor programs, some of the other things that we've sort of been able to develop, like the Zoom room and,
Yep. Part of the thing when we couldn't bring people into the library, we started with curbside, and we're like, we need to still do story time, we need to still do programs. We developed at the time a way to do virtual programs, and we have continued that to this day. If you look at our list, you'll see some are listed as in-person programs, some are listed as virtual programs, and some are actually hybrid. So you can attend in person, but you can also get a Zoom link that we will send you to attend the programs. Whoops. And I know local history has been, the Archive and History Center has been really successful at those programs. They're getting people attending their programs who are coming from all over the world. So,
and that's a really fun surprise.
it is.
Yeah.
You think a little, sometimes you're like, a little bitty Boone County Public Library, and they're coming to our programs on, So the Zoom. Now, story times were interesting because we can't just read a book online. That violates copyright law, and as a library, that's, we kind of frown on that. So we had to go work with publishers and authors to get permission to do these story times, to post the videos, and then we had to keep track of, some of them only gave it to us for a certain amount of time, so when we hit that date, we had to pull that video down. Some of my staff in the beginning were doing their story times from their living room at home.
I was going to say, just if you all were at home and bored during the pandemic like I was, I would watch the story times, just amazed at the energy that our staff had just to a camera, You don't have all these children in front of you. So to be able to engage those kids online, that's a great skill.
That is a great skill.
Really good at it.
Now, one of the things that's not so good from the pandemic is we know that children are, first of all, we've got a larger percentage of kids who are not ready to start kindergarten because they lost some of that socialization, some of those skills. And some of the kids who went through kindergarten, first grade, virtually, they're really struggling with reading. So the library has broadened our definition of early literacy. It no longer stops at 5 when you start kindergarten. Our definition goes up to 8 years old or the end of 3rd grade, because there's a magical thing that happens in 3rd grade. You go from learning to read to reading to learn. So our programs are now pushing, not just kindergarten, we're doing 1st, 2nd, and early 3rd grade work on that. Any other questions?
Do you collaborate with other libraries like Cincinnati?
We do. And that is actually something that came out of the pandemic. I worked very closely pre-pandemic with Kent and Campbell. Since I had worked at both of those, I had contacts there. In fact, the director of Kenton County Public Library and I started as library shelvers at the same time in Covington. So we've known each other 30 plus years. So we would work quite a bit together. We'd do programs together. When the pandemic started, we created this group that had the 3 of us here in Northern Kentucky, the director of Cincinnati Public Library, the director of Claremont County Public Library, and we started sharing information across the river. And we continue to do this. In fact, I just received an email that it's time to set up our schedule of meetings for 2025 to make sure that we keep in contact. And okay, the funny one is weather. That is the one thing I hate about my job. Making that call as to, do we open? Do we open late? Do we close early? Do we open at all? I hate that. So the 5 of us are now texting back and forth when there is a weather event going, okay, what are you seeing in your area? Because we know we have people that live in all of those counties. So we share information and we move as a unit to make the call now so that if we all close early, or if one of us closes early, we all close early. But those conversations, we can share policies now. It's been great.
And the Northern Kentucky History Day, we've had it here once before, but next year it will be here. And Kenton County has offered staff to come and help with that. So that's a really good example because, our communities, it doesn't stop and start at the county line. We just kind of, continue. And so we have all these shared histories and shared families, and everybody's got a library card for each place. So.
Well, and I can tell you at the Florence branch, I actually trained at the Florence branch. People would come in and say, I have a hold here, and I would tear the building apart looking for their hold. I couldn't find it on the shelf. And then I'd say, which library? And we'd talk it out, and I'd realize, oh, it's at Erlanger. You need to go, down.
They would return their books.
And they would, to us. Yeah.
That's great. Do we have any more questions for Carrie? Thank you so much, Carrie. That was fantastic.
Thank you.